What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris, and that is my co host, Jordan, and welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate Fresh Meat Review of Danny Boyle's highly anticipated 28 Years Later. You guys know how it goes. We just arrived home from the theater and have not spoken a single word to each other about the film. That means no elbow nudges in the seat, no hallway talk on the way out, and definitely no car chatter. Now, if this is your first Fresh Meat review, I'll explain how it goes. So the first half of this episode will be no spoilers. So if you're on the fence about seeing the film, but you don't want it ruined, we got you covered. Then, after a fair warning, we will then jump right into the nitty-gritty and talk about everything we loved and hated about this movie. Maybe not everything, because it's like 1 a.m. and I'm tired.
Yes.
We also switch sides of the desk this episode just to hurry up and set everything up faster, and neither one of us like it. We both hate it. It's not going good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna refuse to participate.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in another dimension where I sit on this side and you sit on that side.
Yeah, this is pretty fucked.
Yeah, we're not going to do this again. So what is this movie about? Well, it has been almost 3 decades since the rage virus escaped from a biological weapons lab, and survivors are still, after all these years, living in a heavily enforced quarantine. But as we see, some have found ways to exist among the infected. When one survivor ventures into the dark heart of the mainland, he soon discovers a mutation that has spread to not only the infected, but other survivors as well. So we finally got to see 28 Years Later. Oh, I forgot ratings. The Rotten Tomatoes rating is a 91%. The IMDb is a 7.3 out of 10.
I'm interested to see where the ratings stay.
Yeah, where they land.
Because it's so new.
Yep.
It's kind of like, just the people who have seen pre-screenings and shit like that. Like, where is it going to be a month from now?
Yeah, the movie does not technically come out until tomorrow. We went and seen one of the first showings a little early. I will say, not a ton of people in our theater. So obviously, because it's a weeknight and it's late, and I get it.
Because they knew we were going to be there, and they closed the theater for us for the early pre-screening.
But yeah, we got to finally see it. And first, we're going to talk about, the no spoilers of the characters. So for me, for my part, I think I've talked about it on the regular show before. I really love the characters from the original movie. One of my biggest issues with 28 Weeks Later is I don't really care about the characters that much.
It's hard to really like any movie when you hate the characters.
I don't think I hated them. I haven't seen the movie in a few years. I just didn't really care about them. I love the characters from the first one.
Yeah, and that probably mirrors exactly how you feel about the movie. You loved the first one, but you didn't hate 28 Weeks Later.
That's true.
But, you didn't really like it all that much either.
I will say, like the characters in this one. I did. I kind of got a similar vibe that I got when I watched the first one, where I felt like the characters were real, they were realistic, and they were the kind of characters where, because you're diving into these characters has been in this situation for almost 30 years, and they got their village or whatever, their island that they're living on, but it all seems legit, and we find out that there is a character that's very ill, and
not like rapper ill.
No, she's not. She doesn't.
She doesn't spit fire.
No, she doesn't spit fire. She's like kind of mentally, physically sick. They don't really know what's wrong with her, but they know like she's fucked up. And she does a really good job. She does a great job of playing somebody that's in that situation.
Yeah,
it's believable.
You would think that she has like dementia or Alzheimer's or something, but remember, this is a world where there's not readily available diagnosis.
No. Apparently in this village, there hasn't even been anything close to a doctor in years. So pretty much when somebody gets bad sick like that, it's like, well, just put them in bed and feed them, and they'll eventually die. I guess nobody really knows. The village moves on.
Seems like a really, really big village for there to be no doctors, but at the same time, it makes sense being 30 years into this thing. The few doctors that did survive were probably older and they probably passed on. And we do know that the doctor character, without giving spoilers, that is in the movie has not been in this village in a really, really long time. Like, it hasn't been a couple years. It's been the main one of the main characters. They were teenagers, I think, the last time.
Well, he never
And
went to the
he
village. They went and discovered him. I think
yeah.
like
Yeah,
he did know one older guy who said he used to be his doctor.
I think it was before. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it
yeah.
was his doctor
It
before
was.
everything even went down.
It was, and I don't know. They didn't really specify if they were living in this village at the time or they were living on what they would consider the mainland. Because part of the setting for the movie is they got their own little island. Man, they got their own little setup, and it's a great idea. But yeah, they venture to the mainland when they need shit, and that's really what gets the plot moving, is kind of that setting.
Yeah. Yep. I loved the premise of the island.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, there's this island in a zombie movie, so how does that work? And you think boat. Like
Yeah.
how is that gonna work with boats? How are they gonna keep a boat operational forever? Like, the boat's eventually gonna get old, it's gonna fall apart, motor's gonna quit working. Then you start thinking of the idea of like a sailboat or something. Is this a boat they had to build? Eventually that plan's gonna fall apart. Like,
Yeah.
something's gonna happen in 30 years, something's gonna go wrong there. But they came up with this really good idea that makes a lot of sense of how they exist on this island and how they get back and forth and why this island is so protected.
Yeah. So I think we can both agree characters are great. I like the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And one of our main characters is 12 years old. He is actually, I would say, the main character.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you I think they did a really good job at showing us somebody who has never known a life outside of this.
Yeah,
Like,
they
he does not know a world that exists as a normal world outside of this, and they do a really good job throughout the movie of him not knowing certain things because he's never lived outside of a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, I won't ruin the joke, but this situation that you're talking about actually is a really funny part of the movie that was perfectly placed in there.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's the only real, like, real obvious comedy
Yeah.
that's put in there. And you know how I am with comedy and
Mhm.
horror movies, but this I thought was great. Like, you put one, like, really good joke in the middle of a serious movie, that's completely fine. It's not one of the movies that's built around comedy being part of its backbone.
All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about, well, we're all here for the zombies, the infected, whatever you want to call them. This was my biggest curiosity for when they announced this movie was, what are the zombies going to look like, almost 30 years later?
Yep, same.
Because we've reached a point where there's not really, we've seen it in stuff like The Walking Dead where there's not really a lot of fresh zombies at this point anymore because most of the population has been killed off, and the rest the what population has survived is hiding out, being more careful. So what are these gonna look like? And I have to say, fucking A plus. A plus on the zombies in my opinion.
I give it a B plus.
I
I thought that
love
was
them.
good. Yeah.
I love them, and we get a couple different almost species of zombies in
Yeah.
this one. I could not the ones that are kinda like I don't remember if they call them bloaters or I just came up with that in my head, but they're like these bloated zombies. I could not figure out how they came to be because it seems like they just kinda crawl around and eat whatever they can find, and that I just feel like that'd be very difficult just
Yeah.
crawling around.
Yeah, they do mention it was some type of steroid that is what
Oh, yeah, yeah,
caused
yeah.
them to become so bloated. But yeah, I thought that they looked awesome. I agree, I was really curious how they were gonna do the zombies because The Walking Dead was my first thought. Because a lot of zombie movies, we don't get 30 years into apocalypse to really ever get to see what zombies would look like, and I thought The Walking Dead did their zombies great, showing how they break down over time, because despite not being able to die, 30 years of rotting, even if your body stops rotting at the point of reanimation, 30 years of just endless walking around and like, dragging, like, eventually ligaments and shit's just gonna fall apart, your body's gonna fall apart, and you're eventually gonna be this dead thing that can't even move anymore, and that's one thing I really loved about the bloaters, I guess. They, like, literally just crawl around. They're like
Yeah.
they can't really, like, do much.
Yeah, but you know what's really cool about them is they're still scary. You know, they're not scary from a distance and they're not running like full speed at you, but we do see in the movie that they can do a pretty good job of kind of sneaking up and surrounding you. And they are scary like that. You know, they're just because they're just kind of crawling around doesn't make them, necessarily a not a scary zombie.
And they stay in groups too, which
Yeah.
is a really smart thing, and that's one thing with the zombies in this universe is they can, especially the what are they called? Like the alphas, like they can
Yeah.
actually like think and come up with plans, but even these bloaters still have the ability to, like you said, surround you, to stay in groups because they know they can't get anything on their own, but if they stay in large numbers, they can still get food. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, a couple different I mean, of course, we get the scary zombies, the zombies that, like, literally run fucking 20 mile an hour at you. We get some big, strong zombies. Definitely a mix of different kinds, and without giving too much away, they do a great job. They do a great job with their zombies, in my opinion. I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, for the type of zombie movie it is, in the 28 days later world where there's zombies that can run and they're not just like corpses dragging around and having different types and different type of infections, I thought it was really cool.
So, overall, what do you think about the movie? Would you recommend it to someone to go to the theater? Should they wait for the VOD? Should they just skip the movie? Like, what's your overall thought on the movie?
So there's some things I really loved and some things that I didn't. I would recommend, if you're a fan of horror and zombie movies, going and checking it out in theaters. This movie has an absolute batshit ending, I will say that, without giving anything away.
Yeah.
It does really go, left field there. I don't know what that has to do with you going to the theaters or not to see it. Yeah, if you're a fan of zombies, go to the theater and see it.
Me personally, man, I would totally recommend going to the theater and see it. I loved it. I thought the story was great. I thought the characters were great. I thought the zombies were awesome. I would highly recommend that you go see this movie. That's just my opinion though. And that's coming from somebody who really likes the first one, could really, you know, take the second one or not. I really don't care much about 28 weeks later. It's okay. It's not terrible, but it's in my opinion, it doesn't touch the first one. But this is a great follow-up, I think, to the first one, personally.
Yeah, I can agree with that. big fan of the first one. The second one left no lasting impression on me. Think this one was, in my opinion, much better than the second one, and, I wouldn't say nearly as good as the first one, the original,
No, yeah.
but it's still a really good movie.
Still good. Well, that's going to be it for our spoiler-free half. If you have already seen the movie or don't really care about spoilers, stick around because we are about to jump into the meat and potatoes of this film. All right, if you are still here, welcome to the spoiler half of our Fresh Meat review of 28 years later. Almost called it 28 days later. All right, so we can now finally talk about the movie, and I just want to say, dude, we get like fucking giant zombies in this.
Yeah, yeah, I just wanna say, thank God. I hate doing the first half of those episodes because 'cause I'm so ready to
Yeah.
actually talk about the details of the movie, and I don't wanna fucking, like, ruin something, so I'm constantly in my head thinking, "Don't say anything about the plot." Yeah, we get giant zombies, we get CGI, a lot of CGI kills, but it but
I
I
loved the
liked it.
kills.
Like, it's one of the rare times where the style of the movie and the way that they stylized the kills really made it cool. Like, almost, like, video game-like. Like,
It was
when you
video
get
game like, yeah.
yeah, when you get these like, cool cutscenes in a kill in a video game, how you get this 3D view of a world that you don't normally get in a movie. Normally, I would hate any type of effects done CGI, especially in a zombie movie, but it was primarily just the kills. They did give us a good practical effects with these zombies themselves. But yeah, we get a lot of like bow and arrow shots. Like that's the main weapon
Mm-hmm.
in this movie, and they shoot it in a way that they'll slow down. They'll do, like, a slow motion and then, like, really fast cut throughs or cool, like, blood splatters, and it'll, like, slow down real quick and then speed back up. We even get some blood splatters on the camera lens, like, in a couple of them. And I thought just the way they stylized that, had they just did those like you were shooting a regular movie and you just did the kill in CGI because you didn't want to do practical effects, I would be completely turned off by it. But the way it was stylized and done, I thought it was really cool. I wouldn't want to see every movie like this, but for the style of this movie, it worked really good.
Yeah, it was good. I loved the kills. I thought they were awesome, especially considering that in order to kill these zombies, they're shooting them in the neck or the heart, the head with these arrows, which when you get the neck shots, you get the cool blood spray, which is awesome. I love the fact that we get like this giant strong zombie who we literally see, grab somebody's mouth and pull their fucking head and spine out of the rest of their body, and that's awesome. That was so cool.
Yeah, so those zombies, like the alpha, the giant zombie, and then the infected that roll around with them, those zombies are fucking horrifying. We get multiple shots of this zombie literally ripping the head straight off, like you were saying, like spine coming out the fucking neck and everything. Even at one point, a deer, like when they show the shot and those specifically that shot, so they had this shot, and it's a nighttime scene, it's a flashback where they find this deer, but they jump back and do these shots, like, 3 or 4 different times in the movie, but it's these nighttime shots,
I love those, the red and
and
black ones.
yeah,
Those are one of my favorite things.
yeah, it's done in red and black. It shows, like, all these, like, raged up, fast, scary zombies in the dark with their eyes glowing, just demolishing, like, animals and
Anything,
people,
yeah.
and yeah, we get I mean, just the imagery in that was really fucking cool.
Yeah, I loved it. I did like they kinda did it more in the beginning of the movie, but the kinda weird cutscenes of, like, old news footage of, like, armies marching in the street and, like, I thought that was, like, a really good it was weird, and it's not something you would normally see, but I think it worked for this movie really well. I liked them. I enjoyed them. We get a pregnant zombie,
Yeah,
which
that
is
was confusing.
which how does this happen? And then this
Well,
zombie
this alpha, I think, fucked her
yeah.
and got her pregnant. But we learn, and this is one of the things that I will say I didn't like about the movie. I didn't hate it to the point where it destroyed the movie for me, but the fact that 2 infected zombies had sex, and 1 got pregnant, and the pregnancy part was already, like, weird and confusing, but the fact that she gives birth to this baby and it's not infected. It
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I thought it was super interesting because I keep thinking in my head, we have 2 more movies. So, obviously, this is important. This is going to be explained or it's gonna have some kind of effect throughout the next 2 movies. It has to. If this was just a standalone movie, I wouldn't like it because I'm like, "Okay, well, what does this mean?" And they didn't explain it. But knowing that we're getting a trilogy, we're getting 2 more movies, it made me excited because it's gonna there's gonna be a reason for it. And does that mean that at some point in time, the zombies they'll, produce regular humans and the zombie will eventually die out because they're not adding to their numbers. They're giving birth to human babies and
well,
yeah, I don't even know how they would how the human babies would survive. I don't
yeah.
know.
So I went back and forth in my head of the practicality of this, and you know, my first thought was, okay, this is 2 humans that were normal humans at one point, that 23 chromosomes from the mom and 23 from the dad got together and made a normal baby. Like, that makes sense. But how you get infected with the baby being in a womb and being, like, surrounded by this infected bodily fluids
Well,
and then being born and being covered in all this infected blood and it being in the eyes and stuff, how this baby could not be infected. And then my thought also was it was so if they can reproduce, it starts to make you think like, well, at some point, will they continue to reproduce and create these infected babies and try to wipe out the human population?
yeah, it could go
And
the
then
other way.
yeah, and there'd be this entire like, that'd be where the story goes of humanity's survival against, because these aren't, like, dumb zombies who are just dragging themselves around. They're actually smart, and they can plan and obviously fuck and have kids, but then the baby came out normal.
Well, I think what I connect it to is if you remember the second one of the kids is immune. One of the kids gets infected, and that is the whole like plot. I think that's like pretty much the whole plot of the second one is their little quarantine zone. It falls apart, but one of these kids is immune, and the scientist tells like the fucking main army guy, like, you've got to get them. This kid is super important. They obviously have the immunity to the rage virus in their blood. You got to get them to XYZ. But we see at the end of that movie that that kid has now infected pretty much everybody around him. He's still fine, but everyone around him has now got the rage virus. So I'm wondering if zombie these zombie babies that the zombies are like giving birth to that they're human, do they automatically have this immunity? Which would make sense. We forget a lot of that stuff with the second
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and I could see the baby being, that's the key to an actual, vaccine to make people immune, and it would make sense this baby, as its immune system is developing, it automatically has to come up with a way to fight this off from the very start, and it creates like maybe this baby grows up to be the key to a vaccine of
Uh-huh.
actually, fixing. everything. But in these movies, the main fear isn't getting infected, it's getting murdered by these fucking things.
Yeah.
So, you know, would they go in that direction? I don't know, but that is a really good point. Also, like, is we don't know, the baby's normal, but is it gonna grow up to think like a normal person?
So the last thing that I want to talk about before we end this thing is the ending. I one thing I did say is I turned to you and was like, I think we were both just like, what the fuck just happened? And I remember saying, I felt like I just fell into another movie.
Yeah, the ending was awful. I'm just gonna say my opinion on the ending, awful.
I hated the ending. So basically, we get like this gang of Adidas tracksuit wearing acrobats.
Yeah, so
I was like, what?
they're all like parkour. They all have long blonde hair, and
Yeah.
it's almost weird because the main one wears a necklace with an upside down cross, and it made me think of all the early shots that you were referencing earlier of Nazi Germany and Hitler. And they had all these, like, old-timey shots
Yeah.
of this time. And then you get this group, and you get this charismatic leader. He's got this upside down, like, satanic cross that he wears, and all of the people who are with him have to have blonde hair, blue eyes,
I think one of them had a wig.
or they
One of them
might
had a
have to
blonde
fake it.
wig. Yeah,
Hitler didn't have blonde hair.
I feel like he was like, if you're gonna be in my crew, you gotta have a blonde hair, and obviously we can't get hair dye, so you're gonna have to find a fucking wig if you wanna be in the crew. I don't know.
Maybe he's balding. Maybe he doesn't have hair, and they're like,
Maybe
"We can't have no hairless fucks in our crew, bro." Like, the chicks are gonna not dig the balding.
yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why their tracksuits are so clean.
I don't know. So this is the only time we I think have ever cheated on the Fresh Meat Review and actually talked about anything about a movie,
Well,
and
yeah,
it was like, because it was so jarring.
yeah.
You had this super serious movie, very somber ending, and then you are introduced to these characters, and it I told you it was very B movie
Yeah,
like when a B movie goes and they hire like a couple parkour guys and they do this, just the way they kill these zombies is so
it's
ridiculous.
comical.
They're like parkouring around, like pole vaulting off of sticks around these rocks, and just killing them in completely ridiculous ways. It also reminded me of, like, a cutscene you would get in Zombieland, or not a cutscene, post-credit scene.
Yeah, yeah, it's very post-credit
Like
scene, yeah.
like a post-credit to a not serious zombie comedy.
Yeah, hated it. Hated the last, I don't know, what was it, last, like, 4 or 5 minutes maybe? I don't think it
Yeah,
was over 5 minutes.
it
L
wasn't very long.
I loved it, and then that happened, and I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Definitely threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I thought the rest of the ending, because we get to when I mentioned earlier in the spoiler-free zone, so they have essentially this island, and they have a, what do you call it? Like, uh
Like a walkway?
yeah, they have a
Yeah, I have
walkway,
no
but what do
idea.
they call those underwater where it's really shallow, and when the tide's low,
I
it's above water?
have no idea right
Um,
now.
yeah, I can't
Too
think of
tired.
the name of it either, but it's essentially this giant fucking, essentially walkway where the water is, or the ground's much higher. So at low tide, it creates this bridge, and you only have a very short time at the lowest point of tide that you can cross this, and then you can't cross it again until the tide goes back down. So you got this kid, and the whole story plays out. It's very somber. He takes his mom to find this doctor. It's very, very somber ending, very serious. Like, this kid takes off, his dad's looking for him, and then bam, we're hit with this like super comical way to introduce these characters that I imagine are going to be major characters in the next movie, and it makes me not have high hopes for the next one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna say that, but I'm crossing my fingers that they die pretty quickly, or the kid just says "fuck this" and he dips out on
That
them. I don't know.
that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, neither one of us cared for the ending. All right. So what is your top of the head rating? What are you coming out of the theater feeling like?
Mm, I'd give it a 4.
I'm gonna go with a 4.4. I would probably give it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I loved the movie up until the last 5 minutes. There wasn't anything I didn't like about the movie except for the last 5 minutes. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.4. Man, I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic.
I did too. I thought it was a good movie for sure.
So, we're going to end this by saying, tell us what you thought about 28 years later. Did you like it? Did you hate it? We really want to hear what you guys think. Definitely tell us about that ending. So, with that said, once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. We finally got another Fresh Meat review back. I feel like it's been a while.
Been some rotten meat. It's been sitting
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah. So tell a friend, a family member, or an infected rage zombie about the show. And we hope to see you next time.